You need to learn your place. Get out of my sight." The entire grand ballroom of the luxury Crescent Palace Hotel in New York fell silent. The instant a loud ripping sound echoed beneath the glittering crystal chandeliers. Hundreds of wealthy guests froze in disbelief, as a young waitress stood trembling, clutching the torn pieces of her uniform. Her cheeks burned with humiliation, while expensive cameras flashed from every direction. The woman who had ripped her dress wore a smug smile, convinced she had just taught an ordinary waitress a lesson she would never forget. But within minutes, one unexpected arrival would expose a truth so astonishing that everyone in that room, including the powerful CEO hosting the gala, would wish they could erase what had just happened. Stay with us, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Welcome back to Fireside Files. The waitress's name was Grace Carter, a quiet 29-year-old woman, whose gentle smile had become well known among the staff of the Crescent Palace Hotel. Every employee admired her humility, because she never treated anyone differently, whether they were a dishwasher, a janitor, or a millionaire guest. Unknown to everyone, Grace had once been one of the wealthiest women in America. After marrying Nathaniel Brooks, the founder of one of the nation's fastest-growing technology companies. Together, they had built scholarships, funded children's hospitals, and quietly donated millions to struggling families across the United States. Yet Grace had insisted on keeping her own identity private. She believed the only way to truly understand people was to meet them without the protection of wealth or status. That belief led her to volunteer several evenings each month as an ordinary waitress at charity events, refusing special treatment and never revealing her marriage. That evening, the Crescent Palace Hotel was hosting one of the biggest charity galas in New York. Politicians, celebrities, CEOs, investors, and journalists filled the magnificent ballroom. The event's guest of honor was Michael Harrison, the ambitious CEO of Harrison Global Holdings. Walking beside him was his glamorous girlfriend, Vanessa Reed, a social media celebrity who loved expensive jewelry, designer fashion, and public attention, almost as much as she loved reminding people of her relationship with a powerful executive. Vanessa believed that money gave her the right to control everyone around her. Grace carefully carried a silver tray filled with sparkling water toward one of the VIP tables, when another guest accidentally brushed against her shoulder. One glass tipped over, spilling only a few drops onto Vanessa's designer handbag. The tiny accident could have been solved with a napkin and a simple apology. But Vanessa exploded with anger that echoed across the ballroom. Every guest turned to watch, as she loudly accused Grace of ruining an irreplaceable luxury accessory. Grace immediately apologized and offered to have the bag professionally cleaned. But kindness only fueled Vanessa's cruelty. She mocked Grace's uniform, laughed at her modest appearance, and insisted that people like her would never understand the value of success. Grace lowered her eyes, refusing to respond with anger, believing that dignity was sometimes stronger than argument. Then, in one shocking moment, Vanessa grabbed Grace by the front of her uniform and violently pulled the fabric apart. Buttons flew across the polished marble floor, and the white shirt ripped open. But here's the twist nobody in that ballroom saw coming, and once you hear it, you will understand why this story has touched millions. Keep watching on Fireside Files. Gasps filled the ballroom. Some guests looked away in embarrassment, while others secretly recorded the incident on their phones. Several hotel employees rushed forward, but fear of offending the CEO's girlfriend kept everyone frozen. Grace stood perfectly still, covering herself with trembling hands. Tears gathered in her eyes, yet she refused to scream or seek revenge. Her silence somehow carried more strength than any insult could. Michael Harrison watched the scene unfold with growing discomfort. Deep inside, he knew Vanessa had crossed every possible line. Yet his fear of public embarrassment prevented him from intervening immediately. That hesitation would become one of the greatest regrets of his career. Outside the ballroom, a black luxury sedan quietly stopped beneath the hotel's entrance canopy. Security guards instantly recognized the passenger stepping out. Nathaniel Brooks had returned unexpectedly from a business meeting in California, after learning that Grace planned to volunteer at the gala. He wanted to surprise his wife by joining the charity auction later that evening. Wearing a simple navy suit, without bodyguards or media attention, he entered the hotel, expecting a joyful reunion. Instead, he found absolute silence. As Nathaniel walked into the ballroom, his eyes immediately met Grace's. For one heartbreaking second, he saw the torn uniform, her tear-filled face, and the frightened expression she tried desperately to hide. His smile disappeared instantly. Every guest noticed the dramatic change in his face. Nathaniel calmly removed his tailored suit jacket and gently wrapped it around Grace's shoulders before turning toward the crowd. The room remained completely silent as one hotel executive whispered his name in disbelief. Within seconds, whispers spread through every table. Guests suddenly realized that the quiet waitress was standing beside one of America's youngest billionaire philanthropists. Vanessa's confidence vanished. She stared at Nathaniel, unable to understand why such an influential businessman was protecting an ordinary waitress. Then someone quietly explained that Grace Carter was not a waitress by necessity. She was Nathaniel Brooks' wife, the woman whose charitable foundation had donated millions to children's education across the United States. Even more shocking, Grace had personally funded scholarships for hotel employees' children, without ever attaching her name to the donations. The atmosphere completely changed. People who had remained silent moments earlier now lowered their heads in shame. Michael Harrison stepped forward, realizing that his silence had allowed cruelty to flourish. He publicly apologized to Grace before every guest, admitting that leadership meant protecting dignity, not protecting pride. He announced that Vanessa's behavior had no place in any organization connected to his company, and ended their public partnership that very night. The applause that followed was not for power or wealth, but for accountability. Nathaniel could have used lawyers, influence, or public humiliation to destroy Vanessa's reputation forever. Instead, he simply held Grace's hand and thanked every hotel employee who had tried to comfort her. Grace herself requested that no revenge be taken. She explained that humiliation should never be answered with more humiliation. She hoped that the painful moment would become a lesson about compassion, rather than hatred. Her forgiveness left many guests wiping tears from their eyes. The story spread across the country within days. Millions watched the security footage, but what touched people's hearts most was not the torn uniform. It was the quiet grace shown by a woman who refused to let cruelty change her character. Donations to children's charities increased dramatically after the event. Hundreds of businesses introduced new workplace respect programs, inspired by Grace's example. Michael Harrison transformed his company culture, making kindness and employee dignity central values of his leadership. Months later, Grace returned to the Crescent Palace Hotel, wearing the same simple waitress uniform. This time, every employee welcomed her with warm smiles, not because she was married to a billionaire, but because she had reminded everyone that true greatness is measured by humility, compassion, and the courage to forgive. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like this video, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to Fireside Files. Your support helps us continue creating stories that inspire kindness and hope around the world. Before we end, tell us in the comments, if you had witnessed Grace being humiliated, what would you have done? The greatest treasures in life are never expensive clothes, luxury cars, or powerful titles. They are the moments when ordinary people choose compassion over pride, forgiveness over revenge, and kindness over cruelty. Those are the moments that truly change the world.